First contact and cultural misunderstandings. The vast expanse of space stretched out before the UES horizon, humanity's first deep space exploration vessel. Captain Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge, her dark eyes scanning the unfamiliar star system. After years of searching, they had finally made contact with an alien civilization, the Zarangse. Status report, Lieutenant Chen. Elena called out, her voice steady despite the excitement coursing through her veins. Lieutenant Alex Chen, the ship's science officer, looked up from his console. All systems nominal, Captain. We're maintaining orbit around Zarangse Prime as requested. Their delegation should be arriving shortly. Elena nodded, smoothing down her crisp blue uniform. This was it, humanity's first face-to-face encounter with an alien species. The weight of responsibility pressed down on her shoulders, but she stood tall. They had trained for this, prepared for every conceivable scenario, or so they thought. A low hum filled the bridge as a shimmer of light appeared near the center of the room. Elena straightened, her heart racing as the teleportation beam coalesced into 3 distinct shapes. As the light faded, she found herself face-to-face with the Zarangse delegation. The aliens were tall, easily 7 feet in height, with slender bodies covered in iridescent scales that shifted colors with every movement. Their faces were vaguely feline, with large, almond-shaped eyes that glowed with an inner light. 2 of them appeared to be guards, their postures rigid and alert. The third, adorned with intricate patterns etched into their scales, stepped forward. "Greetings, humans of the UES horizon," the alien spoke, their voice a melodious trill that somehow translated perfectly in Elena's mind. "I am Ambassador Zira of the Zarangse Collective. We welcome you to our world." Elena bowed slightly, a gesture they had determined to be universally respectful. "Ambassador Zira, I am Captain Elena Rodriguez of the United Earth Alliance. We are honored by your welcome and look forward to fostering friendship between our peoples." Zira's scales shimmered, a ripple of blue and green that Elena would later learn indicated pleasure. "The honor is ours, Captain. Your journey across the stars speaks of your species' determination and ingenuity. We have much to learn from each other." Over the next few days, the crew of the UES Horizon engaged in a whirlwind of cultural exchanges and diplomatic meetings. The Zarangse proved to be a fascinating species, with a rich history and advanced technology that left even the most seasoned human scientists in awe. However, as with any first contact situation, misunderstandings were bound to occur. It started small, a gesture here, a phrase there. The universal translators worked well for basic communication, but idioms and cultural nuances often got lost in translation. Elena found herself constantly on edge, worried that some innocuous human behavior might inadvertently offend their hosts. One particular incident stood out. During a formal dinner with the Zarangse High Council, Lieutenant Commander Jack Harper, the ship's tactical officer, attempted to compliment a Zarangse official on their vibrant scale coloration. "Your scales are absolutely stunning," Jack said, his charm turned up to full. "They remind me of the aurora borealis back on Earth. Do they always change colors like that?" The Zarangse official's scales suddenly flushed a deep crimson, and the room fell silent. Elena felt her stomach drop as she realized something had gone terribly wrong. Ambassador Zira quickly intervened, their scales a soothing pattern of blues and greens. "I apologize, but discussing one's scale coloration is a rather intimate topic in our culture. Perhaps we could move on to more appropriate dinner conversation." Jack's face paled as he realized his mistake. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. Please forgive my ignorance." The dinner continued, but there was a palpable tension in the air. Elena made a mental note to have a serious talk with her crew about cultural sensitivity. As the days passed, more subtle differences between human and Zarangse culture became apparent. The aliens seemed to have an intricate system of social hierarchy based on scale patterns and color-changing abilities. They communicated as much through their chromatic displays as they did through words, leaving the humans often feeling like they were missing half of every conversation. Moreover, the Zarengsi appeared to have strict rules about personal space and physical contact. A friendly pat on the back or a handshake, gestures of goodwill among humans, were met with looks of shock or discomfort from their alien hosts. Elena found herself spending hours each night studying Zarengsi customs, trying to bridge the gap between their cultures. She knew that the success of this first contact mission could shape the future of human-alien relations for generations to come. One evening, as she pored over cultural briefings in her quarters, her comm badge chirped, "Captain Rodriguez to the bridge immediately." Elena frowned, setting aside her datapad and hurrying to the bridge. As the doors slid open, she was met with a tense atmosphere. Lieutenant Chen stood at his station, his face pale. "Report," Elena demanded, striding to the center of the bridge. Chen swallowed hard. "Captain, we've detected a massive energy surge from the planet's surface. It appears to be some kind of planetary defense system, and it's aimed at us." Elena's blood ran cold. Hail the Zarengsi High Council now. The view screen flickered to life, showing Ambassador Zira. Their scales were a turbulent mix of reds and blacks, colors Elena had never seen on the usually composed diplomat. "Captain Rodriguez," Zira's voice was strained. "I'm afraid there's been a significant misunderstanding. One of your crew members has committed a grave offense against a high-ranking member of our society." Elena's mind raced, trying to think of what could have possibly gone so wrong. "Ambassador, I assure you, if any offense was given, it was entirely unintentional. Please, let us discuss this." Zira's scales rippled, a complex pattern that the universal translator couldn't decipher. "I'm afraid it's not that simple, Captain. The offense occurred during a very sensitive time for our people. If amends are not made quickly, I fear for the safety of your ship and crew." As the gravity of the situation sank in, Elena realized that all their careful preparations, all their diplomatic training, hadn't prepared them for this. They were facing a potential interstellar incident, all because of a cultural misunderstanding. "Ambassador," Elena said, fighting to keep her voice steady, "please help us understand. What has happened, and what can we do to make this right?" Zora's eyes glowed with an intensity that made Elena shiver. "Captain, are you familiar with the concept of a mating season?" And with those words, Elena knew that their mission had just become far more complicated than anyone could have anticipated. The real challenge of understanding and bridging the gap between their species was only just beginning. As the first part of our story concludes, the stage is set for a tense and potentially dangerous situation. The crew of the UES Horizon finds themselves walking a diplomatic tightrope, trying to navigate the complex and unfamiliar waters of Zarengsi culture. With planetary defenses aimed at their ship and the threat of an interstellar incident looming, Captain Elena Rodriguez must find a way to unravel this misunderstanding before it's too late. The mention of a mating season hints at the biological and cultural differences that the humans have yet to fully grasp, setting up the conflict that will drive the rest of the story. As we move into the next part, we'll explore the specific incident that led to this crisis and the immediate consequences faced by the human crew. The incident, Teasing and its immediate aftermath. The mess hall of the UES Horizon buzzed with nervous energy. Crew members huddled in small groups, their voices hushed as they discussed the latest development in their mission. At the center of it all sat Lieutenant Zach Forrester, his face ashen and his hands trembling slightly as he recounted his story for the umpteenth time. "I swear, I didn't mean any harm," Zach said, his voice cracking. "How was I supposed to know that complimenting her bioluminescence was basically a marriage proposal?" Captain Elena Rodriguez pinched the bridge of her nose, feeling a headache coming on. "Start from the beginning, Lieutenant, and this time, don't leave anything out." Zach took a deep breath and began his tale. It had all started during a cultural exchange program, where crew members were paired with Zarengsi counterparts to learn about each other's customs. Zach had been partnered with Lara, a young Zhangxi scientist whose scales shimmered with mesmerizing patterns of blue and purple. As they worked together in one of the Zhangxi laboratories, Zack found himself fascinated by Xylara's ability to change her scale colors at will. It reminded him of the cuttlefish back on Earth, and he said as much to her. "You're like a space cuttlefish," he had joked, grinning at her. "But wait, prettier, of course." Xylara's scales had flushed a deep magenta, a color Zack hadn't seen before. He thought she might be embarrassed or flattered, so he decided to double down on the compliment. "Seriously, the way your scales light up is amazing. It's like you've got the universe painted on your skin. Can you make them glow brighter?" What Zack didn't know, what none of the humans knew, was that they had arrived on Zhangxi Prime at the beginning of the species mating season. During this time, Zhangxi biology went into overdrive, making them hypersensitive to potential mates. Complementing Zhangxi's bioluminescence and asking them to intensify it was essentially the alien equivalent of a very forward proposition. Xylara's scales had erupted in a dazzling display of colors, pulsing with an intensity that left Zack awestruck. Before he could react, she had pressed her forehead against his, a gesture he would later learn was the Zhangxi version of a passionate kiss. "I accept your proposal, Zack Forrester of Earth," Xylara had trilled, her voice thick with emotion. "Our union will bridge our species and bring forth a new era of understanding." Zack had stumbled backward, confused and more than a little freaked out. Whoa, proposal, union. I think there's been a big misunderstanding here." But it was too late. In Zhangxi culture, once a mating proposal was accepted, it was considered unbreakable. Xylara's family, which, as luck would have it, included several high-ranking members of the Zhangxi government, had already been notified of the impending union. As Zack finished recounting the incident, the mess hall fell silent. Captain Rodriguez closed her eyes, processing the information. When she opened them again, her gaze was steely. "Let me get this straight," she said, her voice dangerously calm. "You accidentally proposed marriage to a member of an alien species we barely understand during their mating season, and this alien happens to be from one of their most politically powerful families." Zack nodded miserably. "That about sums it up, Captain." Elena stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "Lieutenant Chen, I need you to dig up everything we have on Zhangxi mating customs. Lieutenant Commander Harper, prep a diplomatic team. We need to find a way out of this mess before they decide to blast us out of orbit." As the crew scrambled to action, a new alert blared through the ship. Elena rushed to the nearest console, her heart sinking as she read the message. The Zhangxi High Council was demanding that Zack be turned over to them immediately to complete the mating ritual. Failure to comply would be seen as a grievous insult to their culture and a breach of the newly formed alliance. "Captain," Lieutenant Chen called out, his voice tight with worry. "I've been analyzing the Zhangxi transmissions. It seems that news of this interspecies union has gone viral on their planet. The public is calling it a sign from the cosmos, a destined joining of two worlds. They're celebrating." Elena felt a headache coming on. This was quickly spiraling out of control. Not only did they have to navigate the delicate political situation, but now they had to contend with a planet full of eager Zhangxi who saw this accident as some sort of cosmic love story. "Great," Elena muttered. "Not only did we stumble into an alien mating ritual, we've become the stars of their favorite space soap opera." As if on cue, the ship's communication system crackled to life. Ambassador Zira's face appeared on the main screen, their scales a complex swirl of colors that the universal translator struggled to interpret. "Captain Rodriguez," Zira said, their voice a mix of excitement and concern. "I hope you understand the gravity of the situation. The union between Lieutenant Forrester and Xylara is being hailed as a historic moment for both our peoples. Surely you won't stand in the way of such a momentous occasion." Elena straightened her uniform, putting on her best diplomatic face. "Ambassador, while we are honored by the enthusiasm of your people, there are some concerns we need to address." Perhaps we could discuss this privately. Zira's scales flickered, a pattern that Elena was beginning to recognize as hesitation. I'm afraid that's not possible, Captain. As per our customs, all negotiations regarding a mating union must be conducted publicly. In fact, Zira paused, their scales shifting to a vibrant gold. We're broadcasting this conversation live to the entire planet as we speak. Elena felt her carefully maintained composure slip for a moment. They were live. To an entire planet of aliens. She glanced around the mess hall, noting the mix of shock, fear, and barely contained amusement on her crew's faces. Well, she said, forcing a smile, in that case, let me extend our warmest greetings to the people of Zarenxi Prime. We are honored by your interest in our crew member, Lieutenant Forrester. As Elena spoke, her mind raced. They needed to find a way out of this situation that wouldn't offend the Zarenxi or jeopardize the Alliance. But with an entire planet watching their every move, the pressure was immense. Zack, who had been trying his best to blend into the background, suddenly found himself thrust into the spotlight as Zira addressed him directly. Lieutenant Forrester, the ambassador trilled, your bravery in choosing a Zarenxi mate has touched the hearts of our people. Tell us, what drew you to our dear Axilara? All eyes turned to Zack, who looked like he wanted nothing more than to be sucked out of an airlock. Elena gave him a subtle nod, silently urging him to play along for now. Zack cleared his throat, his voice shaky as he addressed not just the ambassador, but apparently an entire alien world. Well, Axilara is. She's unlike anyone I've ever met. Her intelligence, her beauty, the way her scales shimmer like the stars themselves. He was babbling now, saying whatever came to mind. To Elena's surprise, Zira's scales burst into a brilliant array of colors that could only be described as joy. How poetic. You see, Captain, this is clearly a union blessed by the cosmos itself. As Zack continued to awkwardly extol the virtues of his accidental fiancé, Elena's mind whirred with possibilities. They needed to find a way to untangle this mess without causing an interstellar incident. But as she watched the Zarenxi ambassador's enthusiastic reaction to Zack's fumbling words, a crazy idea began to form. Maybe, just maybe, they could use this unexpected turn of events to their advantage. If they played their cards right, this accidental proposal could become the cornerstone of human-Zarenxi relations. But first, they needed to buy some time. Ambassador Zira, Elena interjected smoothly, while we are deeply moved by the passion of this unexpected union, surely you understand that humans have our own customs when it comes to mating rituals. Perhaps we could discuss a way to honor both our traditions. Zira's scales shimmered thoughtfully. An intriguing proposal, Captain. What did you have in mind? As Elena began to outline a fictitious human mating custom that would conveniently require several days of preparation, she caught Zack's eye. The lieutenant looked simultaneously grateful for the reprieve and terrified of what was to come. Little did any of them know that light years away on Earth, news of the interstellar engagement was about to break, setting off a media frenzy unlike anything humanity had ever seen. The story of the human who accidentally proposed to an alien was about to become the biggest headline in two worlds. As Part 2 comes to a close, the stage is set for an interstellar comedy of errors. The accidental proposal has become a galactic sensation, with both human and Zarenxi societies eagerly following every development. Captain Rodriguez and her crew must now navigate not only complex alien customs, but also the court of public opinion on two worlds. The story has taken on elements of a space opera mixed with a romantic comedy, adding unique twists to the typical first contact narrative. As we move into Part 3, we'll explore the escalating tensions and diplomatic crisis that arise from this cosmic misunderstanding, while also delving deeper into the biological and cultural differences between humans and the Zarenxi. The challenge of resolving this situation will require all of humanity's ingenuity, adaptability, and perhaps a touch of their famous ability to improvise in the face of the unknown. Galactic viral sensation, the human Zarenxi love story. As the UES Horizon orbited Xarangsi Prime, an unprecedented wave of intergalactic buzz was building. What had started as a diplomatic mishap had morphed into the universe's most unlikely love story, captivating billions across two worlds. Breaking news. The holographic image of Earth's most popular news anchor flickered to life in the Horizon's mess hall. In a twist straight out of a sci-fi rom-com, a human lieutenant has accidentally proposed to an alien scientist, sparking what might be the first ever human extraterrestrial engagement. Captain Elena Rodriguez groaned, watching as clips of Zach's fumbling proposal to Lara played on repeat. Somehow, the Xarangsi broadcast had made its way back to Earth, and the media was having a field day. #Spaceboo is trending galaxy-wide, Lieutenant Chen reported, scrolling through his datapad. We've got memes, fan art, even. Oh God, there's already fanfiction. Elena pinched the bridge of her nose. Fantastic. We're trying to prevent an interstellar incident, and the internet is shipping our lieutenant with an alien. Meanwhile, Zach Forrester had become an overnight sensation. His inbox was flooded with messages from every corner of Earth, marriage proposals, endorsement deals, and even a few death threats from anti-alien groups. Captain, Zach said, his voice strained, my mom just called. She wants to know if she needs to book a flight to Xarangsi Prime for the wedding. Before Elena could respond, the ship's AA chimed in. Captain, incoming transmission from Earth Central Command. It's the President. The mess hall fell silent as the stern face of President Adira Khoury filled the main screen. Captain Rodriguez, I hope you understand the gravity of this situation. Elena stood at attention. Yes, Madam President. We're working on a diplomatic solution. Solution? President Khoury interrupted, a hint of a smile playing at her lips. Captain, do you have any idea what this cosmic engagement has done for human-alien relations? Public approval for the Xarangsi alliance has skyrocketed. We're riding a wave of xenophilic sentiment unlike anything we've ever seen. Elena blinked, caught off guard. I'm not sure I understand, Madam President. It's simple, Captain. Love sells. And right now, the love story between Lieutenant Forrester and his alien fiancée is selling better than anything in human history. We need you to keep this going. Keep it going, Elena echoed, disbelief coloring her voice. But it's all a misunderstanding. President Khoury's expression hardened. A misunderstanding that's bringing our species together. Your new mission, Captain, is to make sure this engagement continues for as long as possible. Am I clear? As the transmission ended, Elena turned to face her crew, all of whom looked as shell-shocked as she felt. Well, she said, forcing a smile, looks like we're planning a wedding. Over the next few days, the UES Horizon became the epicenter of an intergalactic media circus. Xarangsi news crews swarmed the ship, eager to capture every moment of the star-crossed lover's story. Zach, for his part, was doing his best to play along, though his deer-in-headlights expression whenever Lara was near threatened to give the game away. Remember, Elena coached him, you're madly in love. Try not to look like you're about to throw up every time she touches you. Lara, on the other hand, was fully embracing her role as the alien bride-to-be. Her scales constantly shimmered in patterns that the Xarangsi interpreted as deep affection, though the humans were beginning to suspect it might just be amusement at their discomfort. As Elena watched Zach stumble through another interview, extolling the virtues of his beloved Lara, she couldn't help but wonder how long they could keep up this charade. The Xarangsi were pushing for a swift completion of the mating ritual, while Earth wanted to milk the publicity for all it was worth. Captain, Lieutenant Chen called out, his voice urgent. We've got a problem. The Xarangsi geneticists have been running compatibility tests. They're saying that for the mating ritual to be successful, Lieutenant Forrester will need to undergo some modifications. Elena's blood ran cold. What kind of modifications? Chen swallowed hard. The kind that might turn him a little scaly. As the implications sank in, Elena realized they were rapidly approaching a point of no return. They needed a plan, and fast. Suddenly, an idea struck her. It was risky, potentially disastrous, but it just might work. "Get me Ambassador Zira," she ordered, "and someone find me a chicken. We're about to introduce the Zhangxi to the concept of a bachelor party." As the crew scrambled to action, Elena allowed herself a small smile. If they could pull this off, it might just be the most bizarre diplomatic maneuver in human history. Little did she know, light years away, a Zhangxi ship was racing towards them, carrying a passenger who was about to throw all their careful plans into chaos. The real mating season was about to begin, and with it, a series of events that would test the limits of human ingenuity, adaptability, and their capacity for love in all its forms. The stage was set for a cosmic comedy of errors that would either cement the alliance between humans and Zhangxi or plunge both species into an interstellar conflict. And at the center of it all, a reluctant human lieutenant and his alien fiancée, that accidental engagement now the linchpin of galactic peace. As Part 3 concludes, we've elevated the story to a viral intergalactic phenomenon, incorporating elements of social media frenzy, political maneuvering, and the complexities of interspecies relationships. The introduction of potential biological modifications adds a new layer of urgency and ethical dilemma to the situation. The mention of a bachelor party and the approaching Zhangxi ship sets up intriguing possibilities for cultural clashes and misunderstandings in the next part. We've created a unique blend of diplomacy, romance, and comedy that's ripe for further exploration in the remaining sections of our story. Cosmic Bachelor Party and Biological Mayhem. The UES Horizon's hangar bay had been transformed into a bizarre fusion of human and Zhangxi aesthetics. Streamers in iridescent colors hung from the ceiling, pulsing in rhythm with alien bioluminescence. In the center of it all stood Zach Forrester, looking like a man caught between two worlds, which, in a way, he was. "I can't believe we're actually doing this," Zach muttered, adjusting the collar of his dress uniform, which had been modified with scale-like patterns to appease the Zhangxi sense of fashion. Captain Elena Rodriguez grinned, a mischievous glint in her eye. "Buck up, Lieutenant. It's not every day a human gets to have an intergalactic bachelor party." The plan was simple, or at least as simple as anything could be in this situation. They would introduce the Zhangxi to the human concept of a bachelor party, buying time and hopefully finding a way out of this mess before Zach had to undergo any irreversible alien modifications. As the Zhangxi guests began to arrive, their scales shimmering with excitement, Elena couldn't help but feel a twinge of pride at her crew's ingenuity. They had managed to adapt human party games to Zhangxi biology and cultural norms, creating a truly unique celebration. "Ladies, gentlemen, and honored Zhangxi," Elena announced, raising a glass of what she hoped was non-toxic to both species. Let the festivities begin. What followed was perhaps the strangest party in the history of both civilizations. The humans introduced the Zhangxi to the concept of pin the tail on the donkey, which quickly evolved into attach the bioluminescent appendage to that Akal beast. Karaoke took on a whole new dimension when the Zhangxi discovered they could change the color of their scales in rhythm with the music. But the real highlight of the evening came when Lieutenant Commander Harper unveiled his masterpiece, the piñata. "Okay, so you hit this thing with a stick," Harper explained to the bewildered Zhangxi, "and if you break it open, treats fall out." The aliens exchanged confused looks, their scales flickering in patterns that the universal translator struggled to interpret. "You intentionally destroy a container to access its contents?" One Zhangxi asked, clearly baffled. "Is this a test of combat prowess before mating?" Zach, who had been watching the explanation with a mix of amusement and horror, suddenly had an idea. "Yes," he exclaimed, perhaps a bit too enthusiastically. "It's an ancient Earth tradition. The strength of the hit determines the strength of the union." The Zhangxi scales lit up with understanding and excitement. Suddenly, what was meant to be a simple party game turned into an intense competition, with each Zhangxi trying to obliterate the piñata with a single mighty blow. As alien and human alike cheered on the participants, Elena sidled up to Zack. "Nice quick thinking there, Lieutenant. But you do realize you've just turned a kid's game into a Zhangxi rite of passage, right?" Zack winced as a particularly enthusiastic Zhangxi reduced the piñata to atoms with some kind of energy pulse. "Well, at least it's buying us time to figure out this mess." But their moment of relief was short-lived. Suddenly, the ship's AI blared to life. "Alert. Unknown Zhangxi vessel approaching at high speed." The party fell silent as everyone turned to the main view screen. A sleek, predatory-looking ship was rapidly closing in on the horizon. Ambassador Zera's scales paled to an almost translucent hue. By the cosmic currents, they whispered, "It's the Zhangxi Royal Battlecruiser. The eternal matriarch herself is here." Before anyone could react, a beam of light filled the hangar bay. As it faded, a regal Zhangxi figure stood before them, her scales shimmering with patterns so complex they made Elena's head spin. "I am Failana, eternal matriarch of the Zhangxi," the newcomer announced, her voice resonating with power. "And I am here to claim my granddaughter's chosen mate." The room erupted into chaos. Zhangxi bowed low, their scales flashing in patterns of deference and awe. The humans stood frozen, unsure of how to react to the sudden appearance of alien royalty. Havilana's gaze fixed on Zack, who looked like he was about to faint. "You," she said, pointing a graceful, scaled finger at him, "have initiated a union that will reshape the cosmos. Come, we must begin the rite of genetic harmonization immediately." Elena stepped forward, her diplomatic training kicking in. "Your Majesty, while we're honored by your presence, perhaps we could discuss this further. There are certain biological concerns we need to address." The eternal matriarch's eyes narrowed, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. "Are you suggesting that this human is not committed to joining our species? That this union is anything less than destiny?" Zack, realizing the gravity of the situation, did perhaps the bravest and most foolish thing in his life. He stepped forward and addressed the eternal matriarch directly. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice surprisingly steady, "I am committed to this union. But in human culture, we have a tradition called, the trial of pheromonal compatibility. It's a sacred rite that must be completed before any genetic modifications can occur." Elena shot Zack a look that was equal parts impressed and alarmed. What the hell was he doing? Hailana's scales rippled with interest. "Intriguing. Tell me more about this trial, human." As Zack launched into an improvised explanation of a completely fictional human mating ritual, Elena felt a tug on her sleeve. She turned to see Lieutenant Chen, his face pale. "Captain," he whispered, "remember those compatibility tests the Zhangxi were running? Well, I've been going over the data, and there's something you need to see. It's about Lieutenant Forrester's DNA. It's not entirely human." Elena's eyes widened as she looked back at Zack, who was now demonstrating some kind of elaborate mating dance to the fascinated Zhangxi royalty. Suddenly, the lieutenant's uncanny ability to adapt to alien customs made a lot more sense. As the impromptu dance lesson continued, Elena realized that their mission had just become far more complicated than anyone could have imagined. They weren't just dealing with an accidental proposal anymore. They were on the verge of uncovering a secret that could change humanity's understanding of its place in the universe. The cosmic bachelor party had turned into a high-stakes game of interstellar politics, hidden identities, and the strangest genetics lesson in human history. And as the eternal matriarch watched Zack's performance with growing approval, Elena couldn't help but wonder, what other surprises did the universe have in store for them? Galactic Gene Gala, the hybrid hero's homecoming. The UES Horizon's main laboratory had been transformed into a dazzling spectacle of science and ceremony. Holographic DNA strands danced through the air, their spirals interwoven with Zhangxi bioluminescent patterns. At the center of it all stood Zack Forrester, looking equal parts terrified and awestruck as he faced the most unexpected revelation of his life. "You're telling me I'm part alien?" Zach's voice cracked, his eyes darting between Captain Elena Rodriguez and the eternal matriarch Thylana. Elena nodded, her expression a mix of sympathy and fascination. "According to our analysis, about 2% of your DNA is, well, not from Earth." Thylana's scales shimmered with a pattern that the universal translator interpreted as smug satisfaction. "It seems, Zach, that your ancestors and mine have danced this cosmic waltz before. You are the living proof of an ancient union between our species." The news spread through the ship like wildfire, and within hours, it had reached Earth. The already viral story of the human-alien engagement exploded into a supernova of media frenzy. #HybridHero and #StarChild are breaking the internet, Lieutenant Chen reported, his fingers flying over his datapad. "We've got xenobiologists clamoring for interviews, conspiracy theorists having a field day, and, oh boy, the fanfiction just took a wild turn." President Corey's face appeared on the main screen, her expression a blend of excitement and concern. "Captain Rodriguez, this changes everything. The revelation of ancient human Zar-Inti hybridization could revolutionize our understanding of human origins. We need to handle this carefully." As the implications of Zach's heritage sank in, the Zar-Inti delegation erupted into a flurry of color-changing debates. Ambassador Zira approached Elena, their scales flickering rapidly. "Captain, this is unprecedented," Zira trilled. "According to our oldest legends, there was once a group of Zar-Inti explorers who vanished in this sector of space eons ago. We always assumed they were lost, but if they integrated with early humans..." Elena's mind raced with the possibilities. "So Zach could be the key to unlocking secrets both our species have forgotten." The eternal matriarch stepped forward, her regal bearing somehow even more impressive. "Indeed, but more than that, he represents a bridge between our worlds, a living symbol of unity." Zach, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, finally spoke up. "So, does this mean I don't have to get turned into a human lizard?" Thylana's scales rippled with what could only be described as laughter. "Oh, my dear boy, it means you're going to become something far more interesting." What followed was a whirlwind of events that would be talked about for generations. The Zar-Inti, excited by the prospect of reawakening dormant alien genes, proposed a grand ceremony they called the Galactic Gene Gala. The UES horizon was transformed into a glittering arena of science and spectacle. Zar-Inti geneticists worked alongside human scientists. Their combined efforts broadcast live across two worlds. The goal: to awaken Zach's dormant Zar-Inti genes without compromising his human physiology. As Zach was prepped for the procedure, encased in a pod that looked like a cross between a tanning bed and a disco ball, Elena couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. Her crew had turned a potential diplomatic disaster into a moment of unprecedented cooperation between species. "You ready for this, Lieutenant?" Elena asked, giving Zach a reassuring smile. Zach grinned back, a hint of his old confidence returning. "Ready to become the galaxy's first official human Zar-Inti hybrid. Born ready, Captain." The ceremony began with a dazzling display of Zar-Inti bioluminescence, their scales creating patterns that told the story of their lost explorers. Human scientists added their own touch, projecting a journey through human evolution alongside it. As the two histories intertwined, culminating in an image of Zach's unique DNA, the pod began to glow. Energy pulsed through it, and for a moment, the entire ship seemed to hold its breath. When the pod finally opened, gasps echoed through the lab. Zach stepped out, looking mostly human, but with subtle, breathtaking changes. His eyes now held an otherworldly iridescence, and patches of fine, color-changing scales adorned his skin in intricate patterns. "How do you feel, Lieutenant?" Elena asked, unable to hide her awe. Zach flexed his fingers, watching as the scales rippled with color. Like I finally found a part of myself I never knew was missing. The eternal matriarch approached, her scales glowing with approval. Welcome, Zach Forrester, Bridge of Two Worlds. Your journey will inspire generations to come. As news of the successful hybridization spread, the reaction was beyond anything they could have imagined. Humans and Zhang alike celebrated this living proof of their shared history. Scientists from both species clamored to study the implications, while artists and poets found inspiration in this cosmic reunion. Huxley Laura, Zach's once accidental fiancée, approached him with newfound wonder. I knew there was something special about you, she said, her scales shimmering in a pattern that needed no translation. Zach smiled, taking her hand in his. What had started as a misunderstanding had blossomed into something real, a connection that bridged galaxies. President Corey's voice cut through the celebration. Captain Rodriguez, Lieutenant Forrester, you've done more than secure an alliance. You've opened the door to a new era of human evolution and interstellar cooperation. Your next mission is clear. Elena raised an eyebrow. And what might that be, Madam President? Cowrie's eyes twinkled with excitement. Why, to find more of these hybrid humans, of course. It's time for a galactic family reunion. As the UES Horizon prepared for its next great adventure, Elena couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity and beauty of it all. They had come seeking diplomacy and found the key to humanity's cosmic heritage instead. Zach, now the poster child for interspecies unity, stood at the viewport, his new iridescent eyes reflecting the stars. So, Captain, he said with a grin, ready to rewrite history. Elena joined him, feeling the weight of their discovery and the promise of what was to come. Lieutenant, I have a feeling we've only just begun. As the Horizon set course for the unknown, carrying its crew of humans, Zhang and one unique hybrid, the galaxy watched in anticipation. The story of the accidental proposal that led to the discovery of humanity's alien ancestry had captured the imagination of two worlds. It was more than just a viral sensation now. It was the dawn of a new age, where the lines between species blurred and the universe suddenly seemed a little less vast and a lot more interconnected. As they ventured into the cosmic unknown, one thing was certain: the greatest adventure in human and Zhang history was just beginning. And at the heart of it all was a love story that transcended planets, species, and even DNA itself. The end, or perhaps just the beginning of a greater galactic saga.